A team of elite soldiers go on a rescue mission in the jungle of a fictional country in Central America. During the course of their mission, an alien hunts and kills them one by one until there's one man left, who defeats and kills the alien. The end. It's not very often that a movie worthy of detailed critical study can be summed up so simply in terms of its plot structure, but Predator is one of those films. That simplicity plus a number of other factors give the illusion of a film lacking artistic and intellectual depth. There's the fact that it's a guns-blazing action movie with a level of violence and gore verging on horror. Action and horror are two genres that often churn out brain-dead fodder, and have a reputation for doing so. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, while being a megastar in terms of box office success, is severely limited in his acting range by his superhuman physique and his rigid accent. There's the visually simplistic jungle setting. Apart from the alien and soldiers, there's not a great deal to look at in the film, just a sea of green foliage. And even the base plot itself lacks originality. The group of people trapped with a monster that hunts them down one at a time structure had already been done in lots of other movies. It just happens to have the unusual setting of a jungle in Predator. Regardless of the multiple factors suggesting a movie of extremely limited artistic and intellectual scope, Predator has a huge fan base. And despite the massive franchise of sequels, comics, and the likes that the original Predator film spawned, it still stands definitely at the peak of its own franchise pyramid. Discussions about classic 80s action movies will typically bring up Predator as being near enough on par with RoboCop, The Terminator, Mad Max 2, and the likes. This kind of long-lasting popularity of a simple commercial genre movie is virtually always an indicator that there's something deeper and more sophisticated below the surface plot, something which uniquely taps into the subconscious. Personally, I categorise Predator in terms of basic plotting as being part of a trio of all-time classic team of people hunted by a monster they're trapped with movies. The other two films in that trio are Alien and The Thing. Like Predator, Alien and The Thing have their own dedicated cult fan bases and have produced their own swathe of inferior franchise spin-offs, but those two films are more widely recognised these days for their artistic and intellectual merits. The critics loved Alien upon its release, and it took them years to overcome their disgust at the gore in The Thing, but they got there in the end. Like Alien, it's now a universally praised masterpiece. Predator, however, hasn't fared so well with critical hindsight, principally because, unlike Alien and The Thing, it's a guns-blazing action movie. Critics and audiences are happy to praise its obvious entertainment value, its capacity to tap into adolescent fantasy, but it seems their senses are still being drowned out by the gunfire and the pump of physical adrenaline. This artistic beast of a film, which after 30 years continues to draw its audience back for repeat viewings, is still cloaked in camouflage. Now we're going to go deep in this video as there's quite a tapestry hiding behind the fauna, but first I want to take you through the aesthetic sophistication of how the surface plot is constructed and dramatised. Acting is key to Predator's dramatic strength, which was also true with Alien and The Thing, by the way. A movie with a fantastical and outrageous plot requires particularly strong acting to keep the audience engaged emotionally. All the performances in Predator are up to standard, and each actor is appropriately cast according to their physical traits, but there are two performances that for me really carry this film. First is Arnold Schwarzenegger himself. I consider Predator to be his best acting performance. Unlike The Terminator, we get a genuine sense of humanity from his role as Dutch. He looks and acts like a leader. His physical attributes are perfectly in accordance with his tough soldier regressing to primal survival of the fittest journey. And while there are a couple of now famous one-liner jokes that reduce the film to silliness in places, that stuff has gotten out the way early in the film. After the raid on the camp, the film turns all serious in tone as the team are hunted and Arnie is thankfully given consistently serious dialogue, which he pulls off perfectly well. We get the genuine sense that he cares for his men, that he's trying to keep his team psychologically balanced in the face of the hidden enemy, and especially we get the sense of him being pissed off with Dylan, the tag-along CIA officer who's technically in charge of the mission. Despite the outlandish setting, I consider Arnie's role as Dutch to be his most naturalistic performance. In The Terminator, his accent was dismissible as a limitation of robotic artificial intelligence, but in most movies Arnie is passed off implausibly as a red-blooded American, leaving us to assume that his accent is purely a product of sky-high testosterone levels. but Predator handles this in a stroke of genius simplicity that allows us to take him seriously. His nickname is Dutch, implying that his accent has a European source. Now, I said that there are two key acting performances that really drive this film. The other one is Carl Weathers, who is superb as Dylan. He's one of the few actors who has a physique that plausibly competes with Arnold's, and he actually conveys intelligence despite the testosterone-pumped physique. The conflict relationship between Dutch and Dylan is crucial to the film's dramatic drive, and so Carl Weathers massively contributes to the film's emotional tone. All of his lines are delivered like a pro.
You saying that Blaine and Hawkins were killed by a fucking lizard? It's a bullshit psych job. There's 2 or 3 men out there at the most. Fucking lizard.
And even when he's given a cheesy line, he makes it work so well that it doesn't even come off as a joke.
So what are you gonna try next, Cheese?
He's a great actor, and I wish he'd been a bigger star. Something that I think is very important regarding all the acting in Predator is that while the lines are pretty much as was scripted, the precise wording of the lines is often quite different. Typically this happens because what reads well on the page often doesn't sound good when acted. So a good combination of actor and director will allow lines to be slightly altered when shooting to make the performance come across as more naturalistic. It might seem like a minor point, but it can make a huge overall difference to acting performances. Another key factor in Predator's success as a commercial entertainment piece is that the script, direction and editing consistently prioritise dramatics and pacing over realism. So for example, after the team are dropped into the jungle, they almost immediately find the crashed helicopter that they were looking for. And then basic plot information is rapidly conveyed by Billy via his verging on superhuman perceptual abilities. This trait of his is used several times to speed up the story.
There were 12 guerrillas. They took the 2 men from the helicopter. But there's something else.
What do you mean?
6 men wearing U.S.-issued army boots. They came in from the north, and then they followed the guerrillas.
What happened here, Billy?
Strange, Major. There was a firefight. They were shooting in all directions.
Can't believe that Jim Harper walked in on an ambush.
I don't believe he did. I can't find a single track.
After finding the crashed chopper, there's then an appropriate slow build up to the finding of the skinned bodies. It's important to slow things down here because this sets up the fear elements relating to the alien. And then crack on with the story with this simple one-liner.
Payback time.
When the team sneak upon the enemy camp, the realistic thing would be to have them carefully and slowly plan their attack, and perhaps conduct that attack at night, but that would be boring in terms of dramatics. So the solution? Have Dutch see one of the hostages executed outdoors at the very moment he looks upon the camp. Miraculously convenient timing, eh? This means he has to order a fast and messy battle to try and prevent any more hostages being killed. In other words, get the fuck on with the story. It's these kinds of fast narrative transition choices that determine whether a movie ends up being paced just right or being 20 minutes too long. The film is full of let's get on with it moments, but balanced wisely against the choice of when to slow things down. The sequence where Mac and Dylan try to hunt the alien together and both of them get killed is my favourite example of this. These are both important characters that we've built up a lot of empathy with, so the quiet, snail-paced leading up to their loud and violent executions is appropriate. It's also an important scene because this is the first time that characters try a stealth approach to hunt the alien, actually knowing where the alien is, and yet they still fail in their effort. So you don't rush a key scene like this. The slow silent approach followed by loud and rapid violence is actually reversed here. The film's noisiest moment suddenly flips to near silence. With the still spinning barrel conveying the adrenaline come down. Then slow movements and music and gently moving smoke. From adrenaline rage to hypnotic calm in seconds. This is very important. Engaging movies vary their pace and tone regularly instead of trying to capture a single type of emotion for their entire duration. The occasional bits of humour in Predator serve that same purpose, give the audience a little breather from time to time. A lot of the unrealistic narrative details are there to convey character traits, like when Dutch is leading the attack on the camp and decides to change plan without telling anyone by pushing a vehicle into the camp. In realistic terms, this could have confused his buddies and ruined the attack altogether, but think about what his decision here says about his character. It reveals his ability to spot opportunities as they present themselves and to seize those opportunities in the moment. It's the same mental process that leads him later to make decisions like setting a camouflage homemade trap for the alien and making the most of available natural resources in the end battle scene. Plus, it's an opportunity to convey how his raw physical strength can be advantageous. The character Blaine carries a minigun that looks totally awesome on screen, but in reality, it would severely limit his ability to move about either quickly or in terms of stealth. Real versions of this gun are not handheld, they're attached to helicopters usually. It would have too much recoil if using live rounds instead of blanks, and it would require too much attachable ammunition to be carried by the wearer. The barrels had to be slowed down and the fire rate reduced to make the rotation of the barrels actually visible on screen and to make the prop manageable even by stocky Jesse Ventura. Normally the barrels would move so fast it would just be a blur. But the lost realism trade-off of having a fictional handheld minigun in Predator is well worth it because the scenes involving this gun are so dramatically memorable. As far as I know, Predator was the first movie to feature this weapon, so it gave a real wow factor when the movie was released. I think some people were more impressed by the minigun than the alien. It was so impressive that the fictional handheld minigun has since been used in lots of other movies and video games. Even Jim Cameron got one into Terminator 2. When an action director of that caliber copies your movie, you know you've done something that has had a dramatic impact. Though there's another potential reason why Jim Cameron opted for the minigun prop. Behind-the-scenes reports from Predator reveal an ongoing who's the toughest competition between Arnold Schwarzenegger and actor Jesse Ventura. Ventura would probably win this on account of having been an actual Navy SEAL before his acting career. So Arnie, having perhaps mistakenly felt that the show was stolen from him a little bit in Predator, may have requested to become a minigun wielder in Terminator 2. But in Predator, it's not just about the weapon looking cool. It conveys the physical strength and adrenaline surge of the soldiers who are using it. I can't think of any other movie weapon that conveys testosterone aggression this intensely. The Terminator's usage lacked that paradigm. Incidentally, Blaine wears a cowboy hat, which kinda speaks for itself in terms of his wild personality, and we could even think of the minigun as akin to the danger of bull riding. Even the awesome multi-barreled grenade launcher in Predator is overshadowed by the minigun. So, minigun, multi-barrel grenade launcher, and the weapons of the alien, Predator goes out of its way to do something different in the arena of basic weaponry. The attack on the camp is riddled with unrealistic features. Our heroes kill virtually all the enemies, and none of their own are killed, even though they run around out in the open half the time. The enemies are particularly bad shots, often firing their guns randomly as a gesture rather than an actual attempt to kill. In the two moments where enemies have a clear opportunity to kill Dutch, they stupidly opt for a stealth approach.
Yeah! Stick around.
These moments, however, convey that Dutch has strong sensory awareness even during a loud battle. He pays attention to the smallest of noises around him. This relates to the end battle scene where he and the alien face off, and their battle is as much about stealth and perception as raw physical power. The editing is chaotic in the camp attack because the purpose here is to convey the power of the soldiers rather than their tactical skill. The action is mostly close up to the camera, it's colourful and brightly lit, and the continuity chaos is revealed by the fact that the same explosion is used twice. The two clips can be pieced together actually. We get some stealth at the start of the fight, but it's the unrealistic kind where enemies can be grabbed and stabbed and immediately die without making a sound. A major factor in this sequence is outlined by stunt coordinator Craig Baxley for Hollywood Reporter. The shoot was way behind schedule and was on the verge of being shut down by executives, so the camp attack was shot rapidly and over the top in order to be shown to executives to reinvigorate their commitment to the production. And it works in the film because it provides a traditional action movie gung-ho contrast to the more stealth-based action in the rest of the film. Ammunition usage is ridiculous too. Dutch fires a rocket into this guy's chest, I assume for fun.
Knock, knock.
If that rocket had blown up upon impact, Dutch could have killed himself. He expends probably a third of an entire magazine on another guy. And his anticipation of that guy coming out from behind the chopper verges on the supernatural. There's lots of shooting from the hip, and the biggest waste of ammunition comes in the scene where Mac takes control of the minigun. They must have blown at least half their collective ammo in a single minute here. They're also supposed to be tailed by incoming guerrillas less than a mile away, so surely this big firepower display would thoroughly announce their position. Despite this, Dutch opts to set up camp nearby.
Sergeant! Yes, sir. I want a defensive position above that ridge. Mine with everything we've got.
But all of that stuff doesn't matter because this scene establishes important general points about the relationship between the soldiers and the alien. They can release all the firepower in the world and it won't make a difference because the alien has superior stealth and agility. The scene also conveys their frustration. Low marks for realism, but very high marks for dramatics. Perhaps an even more off-the-wall break with realism is that when Dutch tests his handmade bow, the arrow goes straight through a thick tree trunk. Even a bullet wouldn't manage that. Back to basic plot holes. The team set a trap for the predator, but how do they know it will come through here and stand on the ground? How do they know the predator isn't watching them as they set the trap? A more elaborate situation might have set up a more plausible trap scenario, but would it have significantly helped the film dramatically? Probably not. Later in the story there's the highly questionable issue of whether being covered in mud would actually stop Dutch being seen by the alien. The scriptwriters were aware of this because they wrote that Dutch closes his eyes, awaiting his own death. I assume that was also to justify why the alien is unable to see the heat of his eyes, which aren't covered in mud. In the film he keeps his eyes open, and I think that's the better choice, as it allows Dutch to get a proper look at his opponent before setting his traps for the final fight. The idea that the heat of Dutch's body wouldn't still be visible through the mud is contradicted in this very scene. In an unscripted edition, the predator is able to see a small creature through the wood of a log. There's a serious continuity error as well. Dutch is only part covered in mud on the shore as he crawls away, but in the next shot of him, mud has conveniently appeared all over his face and body, as if he's getting a facial. And surely his heat signal should have become at least like streaked instead of completely blocked, or his breath might have been visible. This is cold mud, but the mud he wears in the end fight scene would dry up and be warmed by his body. So it doesn't really work when you think about it. These logical errors are minor enough to bypass casual viewers on first viewing of the movie, so it works. I was thinking an alternative would be for a section of forest to be set on fire and that the creature would see Dutch standing in front of the fire and he's blended in against the heat. Dutch could then make use of fire camouflage in the end scene, as well as mud. Have him set the forest on fire around the big dead tree to obscure his own heat signals even further. Oh, a change here is that it was scripted for Dutch to look at himself reflected in a pool of water and then realise it was the mud that obscured the alien's vision. But the straight-up realisation in the film allows the scene to move on much quicker.
He couldn't see me.
So, tons of unrealism. Moving on. Something that works very much in the film's favour is the slow reveal of the enemy. Start with seeing some of the carnage it has already caused, then show its bizarre point of view a few times, which is a great visual counterpoint to the excessive amount of green foliage in the movie. Then its humanoid hand, then its bizarre camouflage as it makes its first kill of the team, then its flashing eyes, and then its blood. The first non-camouflage reveal of the creature is very clever. show its hands and its leg, but when cutting to show it in full, including the head, the revelation is short-lived and spliced into two very brief shots. One from behind the head, so all we see is the spiny, dreaded-like hair. Then a shot which shows the face from the front, but includes the sun shining right into the camera, creating a spiky lens flare. This slightly distracts us from looking at the creature's face, and it communicates the pain the creature is in. Bright light is a good metaphor for sharp pain, and the sunlight is positioned by the creature's injured leg. The film does a great job of gradually revealing the enemy bit by bit right up until the final fight scene. It doesn't make a lot of sense why it would wear a completely face-covering and line-of-sight restricting helmet if it can actually breathe our air, but I suppose the targeting system being built into the helmet is the point. However, the helmet justifies saving the reveal of the creature's actual face until the very end of the movie. The helmet feature wasn't scripted, by the way, so it was a wise change during production after a more insectoid design was experimented with and then dropped. This slow revelation of the enemy isn't just about what it looks like, though. Its abilities, motives, and beliefs are slowly revealed too. Its curiosity about the human enemy, as in watching the camp attack before attempting a first kill. Its desire for human victim trophies to be acquired one at a time. Its desire for knife-wielding kills instead of just weapon blasts. This shows that it enjoys the more savage close combat kill. And there's its tentative respect for a human who can finally give it a proper challenge of a fight, giving him the opportunity of a no-weapons showdown. So the gradual reveal of the Predator's appearance, psychology and abilities keeps the momentum of the film going. Each scene involving the alien reveals something new about it, but also leads to new questions. The consistent balance of new mysteries and new revelations relating to non-human characters is also used in Alien, The Thing, A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, The Fly, E.T., Gremlins, and so on. However, compared to the incredible creature designs in Alien and The Thing, I was personally a little bit disappointed in the monster design when I first saw Predator. For me, it was too obviously humanoid in stature and had costume details that reminded me a bit too much of Giger's Alien. But the facial design beneath the mask was very good and quite convincing looking as well. I also think a major opportunity was missed in the film regarding creature presentation that would have been brilliant. The opening shot showing a spaceship approaching Earth is painfully similar to the opening shot of The Thing, but the ship design isn't nearly as good. So it feels like, yeah, been there before, seen it done better. But the big problem here, and I guess the same criticism might be levelled at John Carpenter's The Thing, is that showing the alien ship at the beginning lets the audience know right off the bat that the monster is a science fiction creature from outer space. If that shot had been left out of the openings of both of these films, the audiences would have been left with the possibility that the creature stalker was some sort of supernatural demon. In Predator, it would fit very well with Billy's mystical interpretation of the situation. And to then have the Predator halfway through the movie be shown using technology instead of being a magical demon would be a surprising narrative shift. It could have made for an all-time classic narrative twist. I do like, though, that the presentation of the creature and its motives is almost entirely non-verbal, especially in the end fight sequence. And I like that a lot of questions about the creature go unanswered. We never find out if it was the Predator or the guerrillas who shot this chopper down. We don't know if it crash-landed on Earth and is trapped here, or comes back and forth for hunting holidays. In the script, the spaceship is included toward the end of the story, with Dutch chasing the injured Predator on foot as it tries to get back to its vehicle to take off. He picks up its dropped weapon and fires at the ship, killing the alien and causing the ship to spiral out of control and explode. I'm really glad they changed it to a self-destructing alien in the movie though, because I think showing the alien ship may have been a bit too out there. Or even worse, if its design was generic, then it may have been even more of a letdown. Now, I've heard quite a few people say that they thought the end fight sequence was a little bit below par with the rest of the movie. And I do concur with that for the simple fact that once all Dutch's buddies are dead and he's preparing for a showdown, the outcome is obvious. They're going to fight to the death and it'll be tense, but Dutch will win. It's just a question of how. So I had to think about alternate endings that might have worked better and came up with two basic ideas. The first is that Anna could show up during the fight and join in by offering herself up as a sort of decoy to distract the Predator, or maybe she'd picked up the gun that Dutch had kicked out of her hand earlier. and so she and Dutch fight the creature together and defeat it, but Anna gets killed as well. Or maybe even Dutch could be the one who dies. My second idea is the one that I think would have been a lot better. We're told early in the film that guerrillas are about a mile away and headed their way after they destroy the camp, but the threat of the guerrillas disappears from the story. So wouldn't it have been good to have the alien and the guerrillas be drawn towards Dutch's firelight war cry? Dutch and the Predator start fighting, and their battle is interrupted by the guerrillas. So, Dutch and Predator spontaneously fight the guerrillas and save each other a couple of times during the fight, because they each want to kill the other themselves and not have their prize taken from them by the guerrillas. The team up would be a totally unexpected twist. So, they defeat the guerrillas and then finish off their own fight, or the alien could be badly injured during the battle with the guerrillas, being that Dutch had damaged its camouflage ability, and then it could have been given a mercy execution by Dutch or self-destructed. I just think the involvement of some guerrillas would have been a much more dynamic ending.